Ever picture yourself leading a team, but like with heart, making a real difference? That's what volunteer management is all about.
It's more than just good vibes, though. It's about taking that passion and turning it into something amazing.
And you know what's really cool? This whole field is blowing up right now. So many nonprofits need great volunteer managers. And today, we're going deep on how to nail that interview.
Think of us like your own personal interview coaches ready to break it all down.
And we've got a secret weapon, RoleCatcher.
Oh, yeah. RoleCatcher uses this super smart AI. It figures out exactly what those hiring managers want and helps you play up your experience so it's like a perfect match.
No more second guessing.
Yeah.
So picture this, you're in the interview, a little nervous, and they hit you with, tell us about your experience managing volunteers.
Don't panic. This is your time to shine. But they don't just want a job title. They want to see you in action.
So ditch the I managed a team stuff. Give them a story.
Right. Like, did you organize a big event? Did you lead a team on a project that helped the community? Those are the details that'll make them go, wow.
And those follow-up questions, got to be ready to, but they might ask, tell me about a time you had to motivate volunteers when things got tough. RoleCatcher can prep you for that.
It's true. Having those real-life examples showing how you solve problems and led, that's gold.
It's like show, don't tell, right?
Exactly. Okay, ready for another common one. How do you measure success when it comes to volunteer programs?
Metrics. It sounds scary, but honestly, it makes sense. They need to know things are working.
Exactly. Good intentions are great, but results matter. So, talk about volunteer retention. Are they sticking around? What about those satisfaction surveys? Are people happy?
This is where those RoleCatcher tools come in, right? With all the data analysis and stuff.
Yes. Imagine saying, under my leadership, volunteer hours skyrocketed, like a 15% increase. All because of my awesome onboarding process. Data talks.
Bam. Proof. And don't be shocked if they're like, what if a program's not doing so hot? They want to see you troubleshoot. So walk them through it. What's your process for figuring things out? How do you get things back on track?
Right. Show them you're a problem solver, not afraid of a challenge.
Okay, let's talk about finding those rock star volunteers recruitment. That's got to be a big one.
Totally. It's all about strategy. How do you find the best people for the job?
Time to brag about those targeted campaigns.
Mm.
Don't just say social media. Get specific. Facebook groups.
Hmm.
Instagram campaigns that blew up.
Exactly. Tailor it to them.
Which is where RoleCatcher comes in again, right?
It's like having insider info. Say they're struggling to connect with younger volunteers. RoleCatcher can tell you that, and bam, you can mention your TikTok skills or experience working with student groups.
Okay, so you've got these amazing volunteers. Now what?
Now we got to make them feel appreciated, give them the tools to succeed, and make sure they're pumped to be part of the team.
Making them feel like superstars. That's key. Which reminds me, how do you train and onboard new volunteers? They're going to ask that, right?
Yeah.
Got this awesome group, but how do you set them up for success?
Exactly. This is where you talk about your training plan. Do you do in-person sessions? Or how about online modules? Mentorship programs, maybe.
Don't hold back. Tell them about all the cool training stuff you've done, especially if it's creative or different.
For sure. And be ready for them to ask about different learning styles. Like, how do you make sure training works for everyone, no matter their experience level?
Show them you can handle that. Maybe you've got different levels of training or you customize it based on what people need. Those are wins.
It's all about showing them you're invested in those volunteers, not just throwing info at them, but helping them grow.
Okay, we've covered finding them, training them.
Yeah.
Now for the tough stuff. Conflict. Interviewers are going to want to know, how do you deal with volunteer conflicts?
It's going to happen. Even with the best intentions, conflicts pop up. This is where you show off those conflict resolution skills. Think about a time you smoothed things over or dealt with a tough situation calmly.
This is another RoleCatcher moment, isn't it? Like seeing what kinds of issues come up in that specific organization.
Definitely. And when you're telling those stories, give them the good stuff. Don't just say, I fixed it. How'd you do it? Did you listen to both sides? Find a solution everyone was cool with.
Showing you can handle drama and make everyone feel good about it. That's important.
For sure. Speaking of doing good, let's talk about evaluating volunteers. I know it seems weird, but it's about making sure everyone's doing their best work and meeting expectations. They might ask, how do you handle performance reviews for volunteers?
It's not about being mean. It's about giving good feedback and support.
Exactly. So this is where you talk about how you do those evaluations, regular check-ins, setting goals, giving feedback, whatever your style is.
And this ties back into those metrics we talked about earlier.
You got it. Show them you have a system for tracking progress, giving feedback, and making sure everyone's efforts are actually helping the organization.
How would you give feedback to a volunteer who's not cutting it? Be ready for that one.
That's a tough one. You got to balance honesty and being supportive.
RoleCatcher has some good suggestions for that. How to phrase things the right way.
So helpful. Turning a tough conversation into a positive one.
It's all about helping them be their best. Okay, time for some good vibes, creating a great volunteer experience. Happy volunteers equal dedicated volunteers, right?
100%. So they might ask, how do you make sure volunteers have a good experience?
This is where you shine. Show them you get what makes volunteers tick. Recognition programs, appreciation events, staying in touch.
It's about building a community, not just checking boxes.
So true. If you organize team-building things, volunteer of the month, little details make a big difference.
Right, and be ready for this one. How would you build a sense of community among your volunteers?
All about teamwork, inclusivity, that feeling of belonging. Maybe you set up online forums or a buddy system.
Exactly. Show them you're not just managing to-do lists, you're building a team with a purpose.
Speaking of purpose, let's talk about you. Your career as a volunteer manager. This isn't just a stepping stone. It's a path with a lot of potential.
It really is. As you get more experience, you could become a senior volunteer manager, leading bigger teams, managing budgets, the whole shebang.
It's like you're shaping how the whole organization views and uses volunteers. I bet those RoleCatcher career guides could be super helpful for seeing where this path could lead.
For sure. They show you the different stages, from entry level to the top, and what each step involves: skills, responsibilities, even salary expectations.
Like having a career crystal ball. Right, back to those interview questions. We talked about handling conflicts when they happen, but what about preventing them? They'll want to know you're proactive.
Right. Always better to stop it before it starts. So be ready for questions like, how do you make sure you're communicating clearly with volunteers? Or how do you make it welcoming for people from different backgrounds?
Time to talk about clear communication, diversity initiatives, making sure everyone feels welcome from day one.
Exactly. Set expectations, create a respectful environment, and you're already ahead of the game.
And let's not forget passion. They're going to want to see that spark, that genuine, I care about this stuff energy.
It makes all the difference. Be ready to answer, why do you love working with volunteers?
Time to let your heart do the talking.
Totally. Tell them a story about what got you into this, how it's impacted you, why you're drawn to this specific organization.
It's like making a connection, showing them you're not just there for a paycheck. You're there for the cause.
Yeah. And since we're talking about causes, let's be real, nonprofits don't always have tons of money. So interviewers want to know you're resourceful. Think about those questions like, how would you manage with a tight budget? Or tell us about a time you got creative with funding or supplies.
MacGyver mode.
Right. Tell them about a time you got donations, partnered with other organizations, or stretched those dollars.
Doing a lot with a little.
Yeah.
That's a valuable skill.
Definitely. And speaking of valuable, don't forget about tech. These days, knowing your way around volunteer management software is huge. They might ask about that.
It can make things so much easier. Scheduling, communication, tracking impact. It can be a lifesaver.
Absolutely. So, mention any experience you have, how you've used it to streamline things or just make your life easier.
It shows you're adaptable and willing to learn new things.
And on that note, be ready to talk about how you stay up to date in the field. What are you doing to keep learning and growing?
They want someone who's always learning, not afraid of new ideas.
Right. Conferences, online courses, being part of professional groups, it all shows you're serious about your career.
This field is always changing, right? New ways of doing things all the time.
Exactly. So here's a question to get you thinking. How do you see the role of a volunteer manager changing in the future?
Ooh, that's a good one. What trends are shaping the future, you think?
Well, one big thing is virtual volunteering. People can contribute from anywhere now, using skills like tech, marketing, all sorts of things.
So it's not just about showing up in person anymore. It's about connecting those skills with the right opportunities, even from afar.
Totally. And that means volunteer managers need to adapt. Managing remote teams, using tech to stay connected, finding new ways to keep people engaged.
Knowing those online tools, being able to build a community online, those are must-haves, right?
Absolutely. And don't forget about data.
Right, it's not just about feeling good anymore. It's about showing the impact.
Exactly. Numbers matter. Nonprofits are using data to show their work matters. So you need to know how to use data to make your programs better and prove they're working.
And that's where RoleCatcher comes in again.
For real, those data insights can make or break an interview.
Like having a cheat code for the interview. I feel so much more prepared now.
Me too. Just remember, confidence is key. You've got the passion, you've got the skills, and with a little help from RoleCatcher, you'll crush it.
This deep dive has been amazing. We covered so much, from nailing those interview questions to the bigger picture where this career can take you.
It's been great sharing this with you. Remember, this isn't just a job, it's about making a difference.
So well said. Who knows, you might just inspire a whole bunch of new change makers.
And with that inspiring thought, let's take a quick break to gather our thoughts and prepare for the final round of insights. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more on the deep dive.
And we're back, ready for the final stretch of this volunteer manager deep dive. It's amazing how much goes into building a successful program, you know?
It's a real balancing act. You need that passion, but also a plan, heart and mind working together.
You said it earlier, like being a gardener, helping those volunteers grow. So as we wrap up, any final tips for our listeners? How can they really stand out?
Okay, first things first, confidence is key. You've got this. You're here, you're prepped, you care about this stuff.
And speaking of prepped, RoleCatcher has been a game changer.
Oh, for sure. Those AI insights are like having a secret weapon. Use them to craft those answers. Make them specific to the job you want.
Show them you did your homework, you get what they need, and you're the one to make it happen. Volunteer power.
Exactly. And when you're in that interview, just breathe. Be yourself. Let that passion shine through.
Love that. Okay, I love a good thought-provoking question to wrap things up. What's one our listeners can ponder as they start this journey?
How about this? The world's always changing, right? So how can you, as a future volunteer manager, make sure volunteering stays relevant, that it still has a real impact?
Ooh, I like that. It's about being creative, being willing to adapt, finding those new ways to get people involved.
That's it. And honestly, we need passionate people like you, ready to step up and lead, now more than ever. So go get them. Ace those interviews and use your skills to make a difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We covered it all, acing those interviews, building your career, and even got a glimpse into the future of volunteering.
It's all about making the world a better place, one volunteer at a time.
So well said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the things that matter.